walking up to the truck, you're going to look at the truck, make sure it's not leaning to one side or the other, which would show you had suspension problems or a load shifted. You turn around and check your license plates, make sure they're securely mounted and have the proper tabs on them. And you're going to come on up and open the hood. Come around to this side. You turn around and pull the dipstick. You're not actually going to do it. You're just going to state you would pull the dipstick, check the oil, make sure it's at the proper level. If it needs oil, you go ahead and pull this part and fill it. Next, you're going to check your belts. Make sure that they're not excessively worn, cracked, any abrasions, no more than 1/2 to 3/4 inch of play. Then you're going to check your alternator, make sure it's securely mounted. Check the wiring, make sure there's no cuts, no splices, no excessive corrosion on the wiring. Check your fan blade. Make sure all the blades are intact, none of them are cracked, broken, or missing. Go ahead and look at your shroud, make sure it's intact. And we'll come around to the other side of the vehicle. Check your coolant level, make sure the coolant's at the proper level. And work your way down. Turn around and check your compressor. Make sure the compressor is securely mounted. None of the air lines are cracked, broken, or leaking. Make sure there's no oil or air leaking from the compressor itself. Come on down, check your steering rod, make sure it's secure, not too much play. Check your power steering fluid, make sure it's at the proper level. Check your steering gearbox to make sure that the steering gearbox is securely mounted, no missing nuts or bolts. And you can check your pitman arm. Make sure the pitman arm is securely mounted, no missing nuts, bolts, or cotter keys. Then check the drag link, make sure it's not bent, so that it doesn't have excessive wear, no missing nuts, bolts, or cotter keys. Then you come back here and check the steering knuckle. Make sure the steering knuckle is securely mounted. It's not cracked but broken, no missing nuts or cotter keys. Then you're going to check your shock absorber. Make sure it's securely mounted. It has no hydraulic fluid leaking, which shows that it's failing. Check your springs, front and rear spring hangers. Make sure they're securely mounted, no missing nuts and bolts. And the bushings are not cracked, broken, or missing. You can see the bushings from the front and the back. Check the U-bolts. Make sure the U-bolts are securely mounted, they're not bent, broken. Also check to make sure that your springs are not cracked, broken, or shifted. Then you come on out and check your brake chamber. Check the brake chamber, make sure there's no excessive damage, make sure that it's not leaking air. Check your slack adjuster. What you would tell the tester is that release the brakes, pull on the slack adjuster, make sure there's no more than 1 inch of free play. It should be 90 degrees between the pin and the push rod. I'm going to come on in, I'm going to check my brake linings. Make sure none of the brake lining is cracked, broken, or missing. Make sure it has no less than 1/4 inch of brake lining. Then I'm going to check my brake drum. Make sure the drum has no cracks, no breaks, no excessive wear, and there's no oil or grease in the bottom. If there was, the inner seal would be leaking. Then I'll come out and check my tires. Make sure that there's no abrasions, bulges, and cuts in the sidewalls. The tread should be a minimum of 4/32 on the steering tire, and it must be a virgin, no recaps on the steering axle. I'm going to come out and check my wheel. Make sure there are no cracks or welds in the wheel. The welds are illegal. I'm going to check all of my lug nuts to make sure there's no rust traces or shiny threads, which would indicate a loose lug nut. Check the outer seal of the wheel, make sure it's not leaking. I'm going to come on over and check my mirror, make sure it's securely mounted. Check the door, make sure there's no excessive damage, and the hinge is not cracked or broken, and the door opens and closes securely. Check my stairs, make sure there's no missing nuts and bolts, securely mounted. I'm going to come in here to the fuel tank. I'm going to pull the cap, check to make sure that the rubber grommet inside is secure, it's not missing. Check my tank straps to make sure they're securely mounted. There'd be black traces if it was moving back and forth, which would indicate a loose tank strap. Now I turn around and look underneath and check my crossover fuel line. If there was fuel dripping, I'd know the crossover line had a leak. I'd have to turn around and get it repaired. While I'm here, I'm going to check my emergency equipment. Check my fire extinguisher, make sure it's properly charged. It has a current sticker on it, and it's securely mounted. I'll come back here and check my triangles. Make sure that I have a box with at least 3 triangles in it. That's the minimum requirement. Once I get back here, I'm going to start with checking the frame. I'll look over the whole frame, make sure there's no cracks, no illegal welds, no illegal holes. Make sure all the nuts and bolts are securely mounted. Check my catwalk. Make sure that it's securely mounted, no foreign objects or grease or oil. Check my cross members. Make sure they're not cracked, broken, or missing. While I'm here, I'm going to check my batteries. If they're not maintenance-free batteries, I'll check the fluid level in them. Make sure that it's at the proper level. Check the wiring. Make sure there's not cuts, splices. There's no excessive corrosion. Then make sure the battery box cover is securely mounted. And I check my drive axle. It's all the way up underneath. Make sure that there's no excessive play or wobbling in the drive axle, and then there's no foreign objects in the couplings. While I'm underneath here, I'm going to go ahead and check the fifth wheel, all the slide mechanism, make sure all the nuts and bolts are securely mounted, none missing. Make sure the locking pins on the fifth wheel are out and secure. Check the air line at the front of the fifth wheel to make sure that it is secure and it's not leaking. When I check my fifth wheel, when I hooked it up, I checked to make sure that there was no cracks or breaks in the fifth wheel, no cracks or breaks in the upper fifth wheel plate, and the kingpin is not bent. Now I'm going to come on down. The only thing different between the front tires and the back tires is here I have duals. So I'm going to look between the duals, make sure there's no foreign objects, make sure the tires are not rubbing against each other or against the frame, which would mean it would flat. Check my airbag, make sure there's no abrasions, bulges, cuts, and it's not leaking. Check my electrical lines. Electrical lines have to be secure. There can't be any leaks. No cuts, crimps, breaks, illegal splices, or wear from abrasions of it rubbing on the bottom. Electrical line, I'm going to look for the same thing. Make sure it's not hanging too low and no abrasions from the catwalk. No copper braids showing, no copper wiring, no cuts, no splices, and it's securely mounted. Excuse me. I'm going to check the nose of the trailer. Make sure that there's no excessive bulges or any damage to the front of the trailer. Turn around, get up underneath. We'll look up the throat of the fifth wheel, make sure that the locking mechanism is securely in place and it's not cracked or broken. I'm going to check my landing gear, make sure that all my landing gear is securely mounted, no missing nuts or bolts. The landing gear is fully raised and the handle is in the secure position. I'm going to turn around and check my mud flaps, make sure they're securely mounted. Make sure that they are at least the width of both tires, no more than 10 inches off the ground or the center of the axle. I'm also going to check my cross members on the trailer, make sure none of them are cracked, broken, or missing. Make sure there's no holes in the floor. Come to the back of the truck. And check the air lines, make sure that they are secured well above the ground. They can't be dragged across the ground. Check my torque arm. This is the torque arm. Make sure it's securely mounted, it's not bent or broken. I'm going to check my slide rail. Make sure it's securely mounted. Make sure that all four of the pins are in place and the locking handle is in the locked position. Check my conspicuity tape or DOT reflective tape. Make sure it's not excessively damaged all along the trailer as I come back. Now here I'm going to start from the inside and come out again. I'm going to go all the way in. I'm going to check my brake canisters. Make sure that they're not damaged, they're securely mounted, they're not leaking. I'm going to check the slack adjusters, make sure that there's no more than 1 inch of free play. I'm going to check the brake shoes themselves, make sure that there's a minimum of 1/4 inch of padding. And I'm going to check the brake drums, make sure they're not cracked, broken, no oil or grease on them. I'm going to come on out and check the tires the same way I did up front. No abrasions, bulges, or cuts on the sidewalls. No foreign objects between the tires. They're not rubbing against each other or the trailer. I'm going to check the bead of the tire and the rim. Make sure there's no excessive damage, that it's sealed and not leaking. I'm going to check to make sure there's no cracks or illegal welds in the wheel. Check the lug nuts. Make sure that there's no rust spots or silver thread, which would indicate loose lug nuts. I'm going to come on out and check the hub oiler. Make sure it's at the proper level and it's not leaking. I'll come to the back of the trailer. Check the DOT bar, make sure it's securely mounted. Check all my lenses on the lights, make sure they're not cracked, broken, or missing. Check the plate, make sure it's securely mounted and current sticker on it. I'm going to check all my hinges, make sure none of them are cracked, broken, or missing. And I'm going to check the locking device on the door, make sure the door opens and closes freely and locks securely. Come around this side. check the exhaust system. Make sure the muffler is securely mounted. There's no exhaust leaks, which will be evident by black soot along the piping. Any exhaust leaks is an automatic out of service for the vehicle because you'll be putting carbon monoxide into the truck. Then I would go ahead and find in the truck and do the in-cab inspection.
You can get in first.
Okay, naturally, when I first get in the truck, I'm going to check my seat belt. Make sure it's not excessively frayed, worn, broken, and it locks and mounts securely. Then I'm going to go ahead and start with my air brake checks. My first one, I'm looking for, well, we're going to have to air it up first, sorry. If this is the case when you're doing your test, you have to air it up. Go ahead and do your air compressor governor check right then and there. We're going to build it up to 125 pounds per square inch of pressure where the air compressor governor will cut the compressor off. That was the sound of the air compressor governor cutting off the air compressor. Now I'm going to go ahead and shut the engine back off. And I'll do my first air leakage rate check. I'm going to put it into gear, release the clutch, push in both, release both brake valves, wait for the initial air to drop. Now I'm going to hold down on the brake pedal for 1 full minute. In a combination vehicle, you should not lose more than 4 pounds per square inch of air pressure. We're going to call that a minute. That's good. Now I'm going to turn the key on. I'm going to wait for the lights to do their self-check. Now I'm going to bleed down the air pressure and wait for the air light warning system to come on and the buzzer. Should come on at or above 60 pounds per square inch. Come on about 75, 80 there. Now I'm going to turn this off for the time being, and we're going to go on down to our next brake check. I'm going to break it down to 20 to 45 pounds, where the emergency brake should pop out. There it popped at about 45 pounds, which is correct, 20 to 45. I want to make sure that both of the valves are popped before I do anything else. Now I'm going to be doing a safety start. I'm going to put my foot in on the clutch, start the engine, make sure it's in neutral. Meantime, I'm going to check my clutch for clutch play. No unusual noises, no binding. Same with the brake, same with the accelerator. First thing I'm going to check on my gauges is my oil pressure to make sure it comes up within 15 seconds. If not, I would shut it down. Check my water pressure to see that it's coming up. Check my voltmeter to make sure that it's showing that the alternator is charging the system. I'm going to check my air pressure gauges to make sure they're coming up. Now I'm going to run it up a little bit higher so we can get rid of the warning sound. As you can see, that warning gets a little annoying. Okay, now I'm going to continue on with the in-cab inspection. I'm going to turn around and check all my indicator lights, make sure my flasher lights are working correctly, my left turn signal, my right turn signal. I'm going to turn the headlights on, check the high beam indicator, make sure it's coming on. Okay, now I can turn it off. Next thing I'm going to do is check my steering wheel. I'm going to roll the window down, look outside, make sure I don't have no more than 2 inches of play on a 20-inch steering wheel or 10 degrees. I'm going to check my mirrors, make sure they're not cracked, broken, and they're properly adjusted and clean. I'm going to check all my windows, make sure there's no cracks, no excessive wear, no illegal stickers. Any stickers in the arm of the windshield wiper swipe is illegal. I'm going to check my windshield wiper. It's securely mounted, flat up against the windshield. There's no excessive wear or breaks in the windshield wiper. Now I'm going to go ahead and check and show that the windshield wiper and washer are both working. Which they are. Now I'm going to turn around, check my heater defroster system, make sure that it's functioning properly. Any warm air coming out of there? Well, not yet. It will be shortly. I'm going to turn around and check my door, make sure it's securely locked. Check my transmission, make sure it goes in and out of gear easily with no hang-ups, which it does. Next, we're going to do our brake checks. First, I'm going to start by checking the trailer brakes. I'll push in the parking valve, put it in low gear, tug on the brake. And that works. Now I'm going to check the parking brake. Same way. That works. Now I'm going to check the service brake. And I'm going to bring it rolling slowly, and then make sure the service brake stops it nice and even. And that works. Now you're going to have to turn around, if you would, go out and check the front lights for me. Check the high beams, the low beams, flashers, left turn signal, right turn signal, and all the clearance markers. After the tester gets done with that, she'll come around to my door and ask me what to check on the back. I'm going to turn around and tell her to check flashers, the turn signals, the brake lights, the tail lights, and the clearance markers. When she comes up after that, I'll be completely done with my pre-trip. Except the electric horn and the air horn. Try to remember everything. There's a lot of items that have to be remembered.